When on the topic of what some of the best animated films of all time are, movies like these are always mentioned, and it would almost be a crime if they weren't. These films have shaped entire childhoods and generations and have inspired countless lives, especially mine. Movies like The Iron Giant, Ratatouille, and How to Train Your Dragon played a great part in making me the person who I am today. I'm glad that they get the recognition that they deserve on lists like Rotten Tomatoes' top 100 animated films of all time. However, one film that is rarely on these lists and is always overlooked is none other than The Prince of Egypt. Some of you may remember it for its catchy musical numbers, some may remember watching it because of religious reasons, and some of you may have never even heard of it. Regardless, I strongly believe this film is far more than what we remember it to be, and it deserves a spot to be recognized, not just for its technical artistic feats, but also because of its beautiful themes and unexpected meaning that few movies successfully explore. Let's revisit the forgotten masterpiece that is The Prince of Egypt. The sequences of this film are huge. The scale is enormous and grand, and all of this is due to the combination of the music and animation of the film. The amount of detail and weight there is in the animation is outstanding and incredibly impressive. You can almost feel the texture of the objects the characters touch, the ground that they walk on, or the dust that flies into their faces. The music production, done by none other than Stephen Schwartz and Hans Zimmer, is magnificent and humbling, making you feel small in the presence of the overwhelming size of monuments, plagues, and miracles. But the combination of the two make for a unique experience I have found in few films, both animated and live action. The casting in the film is brilliant, with actors like Val Kilmer, Ralph Fiennes, Sandra Bullock, Patrick Stewart, Michelle Pfeiffer, and of course, Jeff Goldblum, as well as many other well-renowned actors and actresses. Their performances are full of emotion and character, especially Val Kilmer and Ralph Fiennes as Moses and Ramses. The conflict between the two is heavy and layered with a great amount of depth and realism, especially for an animated movie, as are the film's themes and complex meaning. With this being an adaptation of a biblical story, you would think that the meaning of the film would be something religious, like believe in God and miracles will happen in your life. And that's what I thought too for a majority of my life. However, it wasn't until recently that I finally began to understand what this film means. This movie isn't about belief in God. If it was, then it would be the driving conflict of the movie and be a predominant theme. The thing is, that's never a problem for the characters. In the opening scene, the Israelites aren't singing about how they rejected God because they are oppressed. On the contrary, they are calling out to him in faith that he will save them. As for Moses, the moment he comes into contact with God, he doesn't doubt him.
I am the God of your ancestors, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
You were born of my mother.
He immediately believes and continues to do so throughout the film. Again, this isn't about belief in God, since that isn't a problem for any of the characters. The problem is what the characters believe about themselves.
I will not be the weak link.
In the very beginning of the film, we are presented the problem immediately with the Deliver Us musical sequence. We see the Hebrew slaves suffer as they build the kingdom and monuments of Egypt, while the Egyptian soldiers are slaughtering their firstborn infant males. The innocent are suffering immensely at the hands of Pharaoh, a man in a self-appointed place of divinity and royalty. His belief of himself being a god has resulted in the suffering of the innocent. The film then presents us two brothers, Moses and Ramses. Through these characters, the film elegantly further explores the theme of self-belief and its effects on others. At first, Moses believes he's Egyptian and is blind to the suffering of the Israelites, but once he learns he's actually one of them, that's all he sees, even in places where they aren't even physically present. What he believes about himself has shifted. Meanwhile, Ramses is in line for the throne of Pharaoh and has a lot of expectations put on him by others on who he should be, and fears he will bring ruin to his father's kingdom.
But one weak link can break the chain of a mighty dynasty.
It's because of this fear that he wishes to not only become more like his father, but more than his father, which also causes him to succumb to the same delusions of grandeur that has plagued the line of Pharaoh. But in spite of all of this, he has a strong bond with his brother Moses, who runs off into the wilderness after learning of his true heritage. It's there where he is welcomed into a small village, Midian, by its high priest, Jethro, who sings some incredible words of wisdom to Moses. He sings a song of perspective, of how one cannot judge their own life based off of their actions or by others, but through the lens of reality itself.
And the stone that sits on the very top of the mountain's mighty face, does it think it's more important than the stones that form the base? So how can you see what your life is worth, or where your value lies? You see through the eyes of man. You must look at your life. Look at your life through heaven's eye.
It doesn't matter what you've been called, what you've done, or what you've said. Through the perspective of reality, we all deserve freedom and love, but ultimately, it's a choice. It's up to you to look through heaven's eyes. It's because of this shift in Moses' self-belief that he is able to hear the voice of God, who, interestingly, is also voiced by Val Kilmer as well as a few other members of the cast. That can obviously mean many things, but it's a detail I really love and appreciate. In this beautifully animated scene, God tells Moses to go back to Egypt and tell Pharaoh to let the Hebrews go, and he does. Ramses is now Pharaoh and has succeeded in his endeavors to become greater than his father, but he is blind to the suffering he has caused, which is all that Moses can see. Because of Ramses' false belief of himself, he falls prey to deceit, literally smoke and mirrors, while Moses can see right past it. Also, a comparison can be made between the Egyptian high priests and Midians. While Hotep and Hoy, played by Steve Martin and Martin Short, believe miracles are attention-grabbing and glamorous,
They love it.
Jethro, played by Danny Glover, believes miracles are present in our lives every day, and can only be seen by those willing to search for it. It's a small comparison, but it really brings contrast to the opposing ideals between Ramses and Moses. One is grand but ultimately false, the other is humble but ultimately true. Moses tells Ramses that things can't be how they were while his people remain slaves under Ramses' tyranny. Here, Ramses is presented a choice: let go of his power or abuse it further. Ramses' choice to hold on to his power results in not just the suffering of the Hebrews, but all of Egypt. Moses continuously warns him of this, but he denies it time and time again.
I will not be dictated to. I will not be threatened. I am the morning and the evening star. I am Pharaoh.
Here is where we start to get into the heavy meaning of the film. God then tells the Israelites to mark their lentils with the blood of a sacrificed lamb so that they are unaffected by the next plague, the life of the firstborn being taken. Without diving into the years' worth of theological studies revolving around the meaning of sacrifices in the Bible, I will share one interpretation. When the nation of Israel became their own independent civilization, most of their laws involved sacrificing an innocent animal when someone did wrong, like cheating, lying, or stealing. Like I said, there are many interpretations as to what this means, but one that I largely agree with and find quite meaningful even in today's society is that the blood of the innocent reflects the consequences of your wrongdoings. God taking the life of the firstborn reflects to Ramses the suffering and pain he has caused his own people and the Hebrews through his selfish ambitions. Though it is a horrible consequence, it's a painfully realistic one that presents him another choice. He can choose to either let go of his power and come to terms with his abuse of it,
You and your people have my permission to go.
or hold on to it further and blame others. The now free Hebrews pass through the fallen kingdom of Egypt towards freedom, which further shows us the meaning of the film. Throughout the whole movie, we have seen how a toxic belief of oneself being separated and above others has led to oppression and abuse of power. Moses, however, looks at himself not separate from the world and his people, but as a part of them and deeply connected. This humble belief of seeing himself through heaven's eyes has led to the miracle of freedom for not just himself, but his world, Egypt. Ramses, still failing to accept his faults, returns to slaughter the Hebrews now that they are backed into a corner. We all know where this goes. The whole sequence of this film is nothing short of majestic. The composition and music is just perfect. God provides an opening for Ramses to attack, which he obviously takes. But the Israelites manage to escape, leaving for Ramses and his army to get swallowed up by the sea. The Hebrews, meanwhile, are on the other side, free and hopeful to start anew. For our final shot of Ramses, we see him on the other side, alone and in a whirlwind of emotions while calling out to Moses. Here, he is given a choice once again. Accept and come to terms with his abuse of power and move on, or continue to perpetuate the cycle of oppression and selfish ambitions.
Goodbye, brother.
The Prince of Egypt dives into a theme practically all animated films do, but in a way that is deeply layered with incredible imagery, beautiful perspective, and respect towards the source material, all while being socially relevant and something everyone can relate to. The meaning being the power of self-belief. Believing you are above others and disconnected from the world leads to suffering. You fall prey to delusions and your pride. Meanwhile, believing you are on the same level as others by looking through heaven's eyes leads to the freedom of not just yourself, but of others. You can see past deceit and corruption and find true miracles every day, whether it be in the eyes of a child, a sunrise, or a dance. The final shot of the film is Moses walking down a mountain with the 10 Commandments and standing above the free people of Egypt, while the song Deliver Us plays, which mirrors this moment at the beginning of the film. Moses is not the king of Egypt. We've seen how kings become corrupt with their power. God, or reality, is the king of Egypt, the true ruler. Moses isn't. He understands that he's an equal, a humble leader, the Prince of Egypt. As you have seen, I really love this movie. It's visually rich, musically vibrant, deeply meaningful. It's a masterpiece of storytelling through animation. But unfortunately, it's been mostly forgotten, even by DreamWorks. They didn't even release it on Blu-ray until October of 2018. And as someone who collects Blu-rays, I was hoping for a dedicated 20th anniversary release with appropriate artwork and design. Not this.
Wonderfully entertaining!
For a movie that has mature themes like genocide and slavery, this seems a little inappropriate. As for its absence in discussions and lists about the best animated films of all time, it's also really disappointing. Let's just say Despicable Me 1 and 2 show up on these lists more often. The Prince of Egypt is a one of a kind. I've never seen an animated film convey such mature and deeply meaningful themes on such a grand yet intimate scale. If you've never seen it, or at least haven't in a while, please give it a watch. It's currently on Netflix and most likely available at your library. It strongly deserves a second chance to be remembered as the masterpiece it is. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. As for a quick update, I just want to apologize for my absence from YouTube. I made a post on Instagram that hopefully answers your questions on where I've been and what I've been up to. I really recommend checking it out. Link for that is down in the description. I'm proud to announce that you can expect me to upload not once every 10 months, but at least once a month. That's right, you can expect me to upload videos consistently, and I'm looking so forward to it. In case you couldn't already tell, I love doing this. It's a huge passion of mine, and it's beyond humbling that you guys actually enjoy it. Thank you so much for your support and patience. It means the world to me. See you next time. God bless.